The dense fog clung to the towering pines like spectral fingers, twisting and curling as the black Mercedes crept up the gravel driveway. Emily Lancaster gripped the steering wheel tighter, her stomach twisting in unease as she gazed at the mansion looming ahead. The Georgian-style estate was once a grand resort, but now it stood like a forgotten corpse, its double porches sagging, its paint peeling, and its windows gaping with black holes of abandonment. It was exactly the kind of place she had been searching for, remote, mysterious, and full of potential. Emily had built her fortune from nothing, a self-made entrepreneur who turned an online lifestyle brand into an empire. She was 30, successful, and ready for a new challenge, restoring the Holloway Lake Resort and turning it into an exclusive retreat for the elite seemed like the perfect investment. But as she stared at the brooding house, a fleeting whisper of doubt crept up her spine. She pushed her thoughts aside and shifted her focus. The real estate agent, Mr. Grayson, stood near the steps, shifting uneasily from foot to foot. He barely made eye contact as Emily approached, his fingers twitching at the cuffs of his blazer. "Miss Lancaster," he greeted, his voice tight. "Shall we go inside?" Emily nodded, but something about his demeanor unsettled her. He moved quickly, his polished shoes scuffing against the rotting boards of the porch. When he pushed the front door open, the hinges screamed in protest. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic, something rancid. Mr. Grayson cleared his throat. "It's structurally sound," he said, glancing at his watch. "Mostly cosmetic work needed. A real gem." Emily studied him. "You seem eager to be elsewhere." He forced a tight smile. "Just a busy schedule." As she stepped inside, the grand foyer opened before her, its tarnished chandelier swaying slightly, though there was no wind. A winding staircase led to the upper floors, its once lavish runner now moth-eaten and curled at the edges. The silence was overwhelming, pressing down on her like an unseen force. "The house has a history," Mr. Grayson admitted reluctantly. "Not much of it is documented, though the locals have their stories." Emily paused before speaking. "What do you mean? What kind of stories?" His eyes darted toward the windows. He took a breath. "Just old wives' tales." A floorboard creaked above them. Emily looked up sharply, her pulse quickening. "Is someone else here?" Mr. Grayson paled. "No, just the house settling. Old houses do that." She didn't believe him, but before she could press further, he clapped his hands together. "Shall we continue?" The tour was brief, almost rushed. He skimmed over the second-floor bedrooms, hesitated near a locked door at the end of the hall, and completely avoided the basement. When they returned to the porch, he all but shoved the paperwork into her hands. "A pleasure doing business," he mumbled, hurrying to his car. "Best of luck." Emily watched him speed down the drive, the fog swallowing his vehicle whole. A shiver danced along her spine. The house seemed to sigh around her, like it had been waiting. That night, she barely slept. The wind howled through the eaves, and the lake beyond the property glistened under the pale moonlight. At dawn, She decided to shake off the unease and took a swim, the cold water shocking her awake. Then, something shifted. A dull thump beneath her. She froze. The water around her stilled, unnaturally calm. Her breathing quickened, each inhale louder than the last. Her eyes scanned the mist. Nothing. But something below had moved, something large. She turned toward the dock. It was barely a shadow through the haze. Another thud. Closer this time. The water pulsed around her, as though something massive was circling just beneath. Emily's heart thundered. She began swimming toward the dock, her strokes panicked and splashing. Something brushed her foot. She screamed, kicking wildly. A massive shadow slid beneath her, dark and gliding, too big, too smooth. The water churned violently as she neared the dock. She clawed at the boards, dragging herself up, gasping, shivering. Just as her legs cleared the surface, she heard it. A gurgling growl. She whipped around. The water was still again, but beneath the dock, a slick, black shape lingered just below visibility. A large clawed hand reached up slowly, silently, before retracting back into the depths. Emily staggered to her feet, her breath ragged. Every inch of her screamed to run. She stumbled back toward the house, soaked, trembling, glancing over her shoulder every few steps. The fog thickened behind her, swallowing the lake. And in its place, something watched. Something vast. Something menacing. She hadn't seen the massive clawed hand retreat into the depths. The workers arrived later that morning, but by noon, 3 had quit. They spoke of voices in the walls, of tools vanishing only to reappear in impossible places. One man fled after claiming to see a figure staring at him from an upstairs window, a figure that wasn't Emily. Each day, the house grew stranger. Shadows shifted in corners where no light should bend. Footsteps echoed in the halls when she was alone. And then, the dreams started. Dreams of bodies in the lake, of things with too many eyes watching from the woods. She'd wake gasping, only to hear whispers slithering through the air vents and crawling into her ears. Emily tried to go about her days as planned. She met with contractors, reviewed design layouts, and drafted ideas for luxury suites and meditation decks overlooking the lake. But with each passing morning, the tension wrapped tighter around her. Her phone would glitch, alarms would go off at random hours of the night, and lights flickered even when untouched by faulty wiring. By the 4th day, the unease became unbearable. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone or something had been in her room. Footsteps echoed just beyond her door at all hours. When she looked through the peephole one night, she saw nothing, and yet she could hear breathing on the other side. On the 5th morning, she found muddy footprints on the kitchen floor. She knew she had locked every door and every window. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she followed them, bare, wet, and large, trailing from the back porch toward the basement door, which now stood ajar. She slammed it shut, locked it, and bolted to her car. She needed to get away, even for an hour. Maybe a change of scenery, would reset the oppressive atmosphere. She didn't plan on stopping, not at first, but as the towering trees thinned and the crooked wooden sign for Holloway Creek came into view, she found herself pulling off the road, drawn by something she couldn't explain. She rolled slowly through the sleepy streets. Most of the storefronts were shuttered. A few locals lingered on porches, heads turning sharply as her car passed. It wasn't welcoming curiosity, it was warning. Still, she parked beside the only open store she could find, an old general store with cracked windows and faded lettering. The bell jingled overhead as she stepped inside, and every conversation stopped. Eyes fixed on her, cold, assessing. Emily forced a polite smile and moved toward the counter, trying to ignore the sudden chill that settled over the room. The general store owner, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, froze mid-motion when Emily casually mentioned the name Holloway. Her face blanched, the blood draining from it like ink spilled in water. The woman slowly turned to face Emily, eyes wide and glinting with something that wasn't quite fear. It was something older, something darker. "You bought." She cleared her throat. The old woman struggled to finish the sentence, her voice trembling with something ancient and brittle. But she knew the answer by the look of fear resonating on Emily's face. The store grew impossibly still. The overhead lights dimmed as if reacting to the name. "Child, you need to leave. Now, tonight. Don't go back." Emily forced a laugh. "It's just an old house. It needs work, sure, but..." "No," the woman cut in, her knuckles whitening as she gripped the counter. "You don't understand. No one stays in that house. The last owner disappeared without a trace. Before that, a family was found." She trailed off, her expression grim. Somewhere in the back room, something metallic clattered to the floor on its own. No one moved to check it. Emily leaned forward. "Found what?" The woman hesitated before murmuring, "In pieces." The drive back was slow, the narrow road winding through the thick woods. Emily tightened her grip on the wheel, her mind swirling with doubt. The woman's warning lingered, but she refused to be scared off by small-town superstitions. It was just an old house. Old houses had history. People loved ghost stories, and stories got twisted over time. She exhaled sharply, trying to rationalize the fear creeping at the edges of her mind. The workers were probably jumpy, feeding off each other's paranoia. And Mr. Grayson? Maybe he had heard the stories too many times, let them get under his skin. That didn't mean the house was actually dangerous. Yet, despite her logical reasoning, unease settled deep in her bones. The headlights cut through the fog, illuminating gnarled branches that stretched overhead like skeletal fingers. A shadow suddenly darted between the trees, too large to be a deer. Emily's heart pounded, but when she turned her head to look, there was nothing there. She shook herself. Maybe she was just tired. Too much stress, too much excitement over the project. A good night's sleep would clear her head. But as she pulled into the long, winding driveway, the house stood waiting, silent, looming. And as she stepped out of her car, she swore she heard the faintest whisper carried by the wind. Her name. A rustling sound came from the trees behind her. Emily froze, her pulse pounding in her ears. Slowly, she turned. Nothing. Just the trees shifting in the wind, just the fog playing tricks. She took a deep breath and walked inside, locking the door behind her. Outside, beyond the tree line, something watched and waited. Inside, the air had changed. It felt thick, pressing against her skin like unseen hands. The house exhaled around her, groaning as if awakening. From the corner of her eye, movement. A figure, just beyond the stairwell. She turned sharply. Nothing. Just the dim hallway stretching into darkness. Emily decided to ignore it, her imagination running wild again. Each passing day brought more horrifying discoveries. She found an old, leather-bound journal buried in the library's dusty shelves, its pages filled with frantic scrawls detailing strange disappearances and impossible creatures lurking in the woods. Blood-stained floorboards in the basement revealed hidden rooms, scratched walls, and iron restraints. The nightmares worsened, turning vivid and grotesque. She dreamt of the previous occupants, faces twisted in agony, whispering pleas as shadowy figures dragged them into the lake's abyss. And the creatures. Grotesque, towering things with hollow eyes and jagged teeth, watching her, waiting. Then came the knocking, a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap on her bedroom door in the dead of night. When she finally worked up the courage to open it, the hallway stretched impossibly long, lined with figures wrapped in decay, their eyeless sockets fixated on her. And the lake, the thing beneath its surface, grew restless. The whispers turned to guttural voices. Something ravenous was waking. Emily knew she had to leave. But the house had other plans. The doors would not open. The windows sealed themselves shut. That night, the house was colder than it had ever been. Emily lay rigid beneath the blankets, eyes wide in the darkness, listening to the wind rattle the windows and something heavier, something breathing, just outside her door. Then it came again. This time she wasn't having a nightmare. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, rhythmic, intentional. She sat up, heart thudding so loud it drowned the silence. The knock wasn't rushed. It wasn't confused. It was patient. Gathering her courage, she slid from the bed and stepped barefoot onto the creaking floor. The door loomed ahead, a sliver of darkness beneath it showing no movement. But Emily felt something there. Not just a presence, but attention. She reached out, paused, listened. No knock this time, just breathing, wet, low, and labored. Her fingers brushed the doorknob, slick with cold condensation, and then a sudden slam shook the door in its frame. The walls vibrated with the impact. Emily stumbled back with a scream as the light bulb above her flickered violently before dying, plunging the room into black. She backed toward the closet, the only place to hide, her breaths short and shallow. Something scraped outside. A dragging sound, nails or claws across the wooden floor. The breathing grew louder, heavier. The knob turned slowly. Click, click. Then silence. Emily slipped inside the closet and pulled the door shut, trembling. Darkness pressed against her from all sides. From a crack between the slats, she watched as the bedroom door creaked open. At first, there was only shadow. Then, a massive shape stepped into the room. 7 feet tall, hunched and bristling with wet black fur. Its head brushed the ceiling, joints cracked with each deliberate step. Its limbs were too long, its fingers gnarled and ending in nails like rusted daggers. Its mouth hung open, too wide, the teeth endless and dripping. It sniffed the air, emitting a phlegmy hiss. And then, it turned toward the closet. Emily's hand clamped over her mouth to keep from crying out. The thing moved closer, dragging one long arm across her dresser, knocking everything to the floor. Its breath was inches from the closet door now. Then it spoke, not with a voice, but with every wall, every floorboard vibrating with its words. She hears us. She sees now. The closet door creaked inward. But suddenly, movement. All the walls of the room groaned. Emily blinked. Shadowed figures were emerging from them, translucent, twisted echoes of the past. Men, women, children, each of them dead, their skin etched with pain and terror, their mouths open in eternal screams. They surrounded the creature, and it snarled. It wasn't angry at them. It was angry at her. Emily bolted from the closet, slipping past the monster as it roared. The ghost surged in behind her, shrieking as the house shook, furniture splintering, light fixtures exploding. She raced for the front door, but the hallway stretched too far. The house was no longer playing by natural rules. The geometry twisted, rooms opened into impossible staircases, and windows became mirrors, showing her dying again and again. From the ceiling, hands began to drop down. Gray, clutching, reaching for her. Then, the basement door flew open. A surge of wind and black mist pulled her down into the depths as she screamed. And from the woods, the monsters came crawling, drawn by her presence, by the promise of new prey. At dawn, thick fog rolled over the property as Mr. Grayson parked near the entrance. He stepped out, straightened his suit, and hammered a for sale sign into the dirt. His phone rang. Yes, he answered smoothly, watching as a tow truck hauled Emily's Mercedes away. It's available. Would you care to schedule a tour of the house? A slow smirk curled his lips as he glanced at the looming house. Perfect. See you soon.